If you've been thinking about buying your first investment property in North Texas, now is the time. Were you worried you might have missed the window of opportunity? Don't worry. Did you know that over 400 people make the DFW Metroplex their new home every single day? And those are 2025 estimated numbers. And why wouldn't this many people be calling DFW home, with so many businesses making the DFW Metroplex their new headquarters and other companies moving to the area? Universal Studios opening a location, Goldman Sachs, Tesla. I could keep going. More and more companies are making Dallas home. And so with that, that's going to be increasing, obviously, the population, the demand for housing, and you can make the most of your opportunity by buying an investment property. Cities like Frisco, Prosper, Salina, and McKinney are booming. So if you're looking for long-term wealth, stable passive income, and the ability to build equity over time, perhaps buying your first rental property in the DFW market could be the smartest thing that you do this year. So let's talk about how to do it the right way. Hello everyone, I'm Leigh Calvert with Briggs Freeman Sotheby's International Realty, and I help buyers and sellers all over North Texas buy and sell their homes, including investors. And I don't just help others buy investment properties, I have them myself. I have those considerations and things to bring to my clients by using my own experiences also. Thinking about what's going on in the development, what's going to be the attraction, what approach are we doing for this investment property? Is it a short, medium, long-term hold? Do we need to put money into it? Do I want to avoid putting capital into the property? All these things we would discuss. In this video, we're going to go over the 9 essential steps for buying your first investment property in the DFW Metroplex. So whether you've bought a home before or this might be your first approach, follow along and let me know your thoughts. Most agents will say, step 1, connect with a realtor. And the other steps, we'll handle those. You just follow along. However, I want to educate you. So step 1, the real step 1, preparing your down payment funds. Now, this can vary depending on your approach. Now, for a lot of individuals or young investors that are flexible on their living setup, there's something called house hacking, right? You could buy a property and live in it if you're prepared to live in it for a year and rent out some rooms, or you could be in a house with an ADU, or you could actually buy a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, live in one of those units and rent the other ones out. That goes towards paying your payment. And then after a year, you move out. Now, if you're going to do that approach, you could invest as little as 3.5% down to get into a property. Sure, your monthly payment will be higher, but your opening capital to buy into an investment property is much lower. If you are not going to live in the property, you might need as little as 15 to 20% just to get going. In some circumstances, that can even rise to 25%, depending on credit score and location of the property. So, capital-wise, be mindful of how much money to get in. Again, if you are flexible on your own living circumstances, you might find long-term success getting a duplex, triplex, fourplex and living in it for a year. And then over the years, that property, once you've moved out, is now a fully rented property for your own passive income. Now, how does that translate into numbers? Well, if you, let's say you're buying a $500,000 property, right? And you can certainly find cheaper, you can find more expensive, but let's say $500,000. If you were going in and buying it as a rental and it was 20% down, that's $100,000 you're gonna need to bring forward. If you were able to buy an investment property for $500,000, a duplex, triplex, or even single family home, and you were gonna live in it to begin with, and can do the 3.5% down, that's just $17,500, a far lower barrier of entry to get into the investment world. So which one would you be able to do? I know for me, I live in my house, I've got a family. I'm not moving out to go and buy an investment property. So for me, I'm gonna be looking at that 20% range on each time. However, take me back 20 years when I was much younger, kind of a little more, free living. Could I have done that investment property to begin with? I wish I had a video like this telling me I should have done that. Step 2, building your credit. A lot of investors, we all focus on the down payment, and it's step one. Why wouldn't you focus on the down payment? But you can't forget about your credit score. Credit scores directly relate to the interest rate that you will get when purchasing an investment property. And that would completely have a massive change on your purchase power and the risk level for lenders that might lend you the difference for the purchase. So let's say you're buying a property that's around $350,000. And if you were at the 5.5% interest rate, your payment would be around the 1600s. If it went to 6.75%, you could be looking in the higher 1800s. And when you're thinking about renting the property out, generally, there's generally a cap on where renters will go, and you want to be mindful of what your goal is. Are you trying to have a tenant simply just pay your expenses and you're not necessarily looking for monthly passive income? Or do you need that passive income and you're relying on it giving you $200, $300, $400, $500, $1,000 every month from that rental property? Things you're going to want to consider when assessing what direction to go. So you might be wondering, Leigh, what do I have to do? Or where does my credit score need to be? Well, I would say you really want to be around 700 or more. Now, if you're around that rate, connect with that lender ASAP to talk about your options. If you're below 700, here are a few tips for raising that credit score. Firstly, check your credit score. Go to Credit Karma, Equifax, any of the key credit score checks online and run your report so you know where you are. Number two, pay down some debt. And don't just pay the minimum payments. Get a little bit more to get that principal payment down. 3, keep your credit utilization under 30%. Ideally, if you can, get it to around 10%. 4, try to avoid taking out new credit cards or putting any big purchases on your credit cards, like a new car, for example, right? Even when homeowners or would-be homeowners are going through the purchase process and they talk about, well, I just bought a new car, that can completely change your credit score and your lending approval when buying a home. So if you're thinking about buying a car, also you're thinking about buying a property, investment or personal, just speak to people before you do it. And 5, you could speak to your bank for some advice. I would connect with a lender that you're thinking about using for your loan to get their advice as well, being that they would be your partner for providing the lending for the property. Number 3, speak to lenders. Now, this is not talking about throwing in an application. This is the research stage, okay? There are lenders that do great with residential. There are lenders that have different programs available for investors. So shop around. Don't just go with an immediate recommendation. Make sure you're asking questions. Make sure you're understanding the differences between different lenders, whether it's a bank or a mortgage broker or a wholesale lender or an online lender. They all have different plans and packages available. So you want to do that research to determine what makes sense for you. Now, they might say, well, I really can't give you much information until you fill in this online application. And I get that. That's kind of commonplace for what a lender will do to move you along the line, but also to capture the details. However, you want to be asking questions about their loan programs, about their frequency with working with investors. Are there any investor-focused loan programs that they can talk to you about with regards to single-family homes or multi-family properties or land or apartment complexes or whatever it might be with regards to the investment that you're looking to make? Now, if you don't have a lender in mind, if you're looking to buy something in North Texas or anywhere around most of the country, I have a great set of connections I'd love to introduce you to. Just reach out. I'm happy to give you their contact information. Number 4, determining what property to buy. Now, this is where I'd really say you really want to make sure you're connecting with a real estate professional to have this conversation with, right? To do the analysis, to understand what are my goals? What do I want out of these things? What is the pros? What are the cons? What are the things I need to be mindful of when buying this property? Do I want to just get a single family home and rent that out? Are you doing a long-term rent, a short-term rent? Are you doing Airbnb? Does the neighborhood allow short-term rentals in the community? That's been a big thing over the last 6, 7 years. Do you want to buy a multiplex? Now, residentially, a residential loan, you can do a multifamily property for 2, 3, and 4 unit properties. Once you cross to 5 units or more, that now becomes a commercial purchase, not a residential purchase. And that can completely change the approach on how you're doing your financing and your ownership type and everything. So make sure you're having these discussions before you're setting certain plans. Make sure you're talking with an agent to have an understanding of that. It's not just what you want, it's understanding why you want it. You might want to also consider, how are you managing the property? Are you going to manage it yourself? Are you going to have a property manager do it? What's the cost of the property manager? Did you know that property managers charge less for more doors, right? So if you have one property, one door. You have a fourplex, 4 doors. If you have 6 fourplexes that you've developed, that's 24 doors, right? And the property manager is going to be mindful of how many doors you're working with. And that's going to change the rate, which obviously would improve the amount of income you get per property. Now, you might be considering something with a little less maintenance, maybe a condominium or a townhome where the exterior maintenance is handled by the HOA. And that's perfectly fine. But with HOAs and condominiums and townhomes, obviously you've got to factor in that HOA fee, the assessments that could come up that could really have a huge detriment to your investment. Yes, you might get a new roof, but you're not in control of that. Do you want to be buying into something that's already had everything done so you don't have to worry about it later? Or do you want to get something a little cheap and that initial payment might be lower, which is great, but that assessment might come later for siding, windows, roof, exterior, hard groundwork. All these different things could play in that you don't necessarily have that control over. Number 5, conducting your initial property research. This is where it gets real. You're kind of moving from the planning stages and getting out there into the world to see these properties and really providing some realism aspect to it. So this is where I like to obviously take what you've done from the consultation and go and visit some properties. Then you would send those properties to the lender. The lender is going to provide you a cost estimate sheet. This is where the numbers really start to become real and you're getting that assessment of, does this place make sense to me? Oftentimes we see things kind of tweak during this process because we get to really see how much this one's going to cost. You're talking to a property manager about what you might rent it for, and you're doing the comparing and the contrasting and tweaking your goals a little bit based off the realism of that number. This is also oftentimes where people can get overwhelmed with looking at properties, right? You're having to think about so many things. How well is the property condition? What am I going to have to repair it with? What's the demand of the tenant? Is the tenant going to be more demanding than someone who's going to want to buy and own it? So presentation for when you're trying to get a tenant is going to be different. So having a real estate partner in that time to really, lower emotions and keep focus for what you talked about during the consultation will be absolutely instrumental in helping you do that. The biggest challenge that most people have is they struggle to make a decision. If you are able to keep your focus to make a decision, to move forward, and then actually reap the benefits of your decision to purchase the investment property, that's when you get on the proper track. Now, naturally, whenever we go look at properties, we think, gosh, would I like to live here? Is this place nice? Investors, you need to be looking at what amount of money is this property going to make me? What do the numbers look like? And I completely believe that. That's the number one thing. I do still believe you should have pride of your purchase, right? So if you don't like what you're buying and the numbers make sense, sometimes that can be, it makes sense. Well, I'm going to do it. But you still have this thing in your back of your mind. I've seen it with other investors that you're always casting this level of doubt on the property simply because you don't like it. So I do think there's a balance in there of the numbers making sense, but also having appreciation for the property that you did buy. So when assessing properties and what they will rent for, try to use the tools that are available for you. So people do look for rentals on apartmentfinder.com, Zillow, and so forth. I have access to the MLS and I can run reports to see recent rental sales in the area. That helps me understand activity also. And you're going to want to have access to those reports and pull those to make sure of what you're doing with the investment property that you're looking at. What could it fetch? And that's going to help you determine that number. But don't go it alone. Make sure you've got a real estate partner with you going through it. Now, how does a property make money? Well, there's a couple steps behind that. Something I've been doing lately for an investor buyer of mine. We started off with step one, identifying the areas we wanted to focus on. And we thought about the ideal tenant for the would-be landlord. And they wanted good schools. They felt like that was going to be something that was a continuous driver for them, right? And we also considered the bedroom count. So using the MLS access, I did some research for them and I looked at the average rents for a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom for single levels or 2 stories, for age of the home. And we go through that data to determine what the best result is for the areas they're looking in. It's not just simply price per square foot and average price per square foot for the rent. No. You're going to be trying to have an illustration of who wants this rental property, how frequent can I get this thing done, how often is there demand in this area for this type of property. Step 2, you're going to be running numbers, right? So we're talking about average rent for that type of property in the area. What's your estimated mortgage payment on that? How does that balance? What are you anticipating for management costs? How are you handling utilities? Is there a HOA fee? What are you doing for insurance rates? Have you talked to your insurance agent yet in regards to the fees for that? Overall, what is your monthly nut gonna be for that property, and can you reasonably get that from a would-be tenant to cover that cost and hopefully give you a little extra something on top? Now, you could go to something like mortgagecalculator.org, right, and punch the numbers in to do that estimate. I would also say I would refer back to point 3 with your lender connections and talk to a lender to get them to look at it. That way it's focused on you, not just an online approach, right? So use the partners you have in your team to determine the right numbers, the right property, the right location. But step 3, don't just look at numbers. Look at the area, look at job growth, right? School ratings, days on market for rental properties in that area. All of these things are going to be contributing to the understanding of the community that you're buying into. So it's going to be understand or trying to determine what areas you want, then look at the numbers for the properties, then look at what's going on with the community and their activity relative to the numbers. So that way you kind of sandwich the idea of what's making up the evaluation for does this property make sense and does it make me money? And the last thing you want to consider for making you money, it's not just about the monthly number. What's going on with property appreciation rates in the area? You know, if you are only breaking even every year, perhaps, whether it's a short-term rental, medium-term rental, long-term rental, a property's appreciating enough every year that you're just developing that growth in your wealth and someone's buying that property for you by giving you the monthly payments. So at the end of a 15, 25, 30-year loan, you end up with this property that you didn't pay for, but you now own it and get to appreciate the benefits of the value that it now holds later down the line. Congratulations. Step number 6, now we're gonna take those lender partners and we're gonna pick one and you're gonna get approved by that lender. Make sure they're running through your credit score. They're checking everything on there. What pitfalls could come up later that could stop you from buying a property? They're going to do a deep dive into what you're doing, right? This is the moment where you start trying to make some commitment with a lender. They're going to be your partner. They're going to be the ones that provide you the finances. But you've done this after research. You've done this after testing out their valuations with regards to some properties out there that you're considering buying, right? So getting approved by the lender, you're going to make sure you're going to have your documents ready, W-2s, tax returns, all these different things they're going to ask. By the end of going through the process, if you've never bought a property before, I guarantee you're going to understand how difficult it is to actually get a loan by all of the paperwork. You're going to know that No one's getting a loan anymore without having to go through the due diligence to get it, which really speaks to the confidence we have in the valuations in our market based off the depths that you have to go to even get financing in this modern era. Now, if you're thinking about buying it and renting it out long term, maybe you already have someone in mind who would be renting it out. Well, lenders would love to hear that, and they'd love to see a proposed rental agreement that is going to be in place for upon owning that property. That's going to work into the numbers. That is going to actually help you on your approval as well. So make sure that you can probably, say it's a friend or a family member, or maybe you're going to live there and you've got a group of buddies that are going to live with you as well. Get that stuff on paper. That's going to be great for the lender to see. And again, if you haven't got a lender to go through step 3 and step 6, make sure to reach out. I've got a great group of people that would love to chat with you. Number 7, lucky number 7. This is where a lot of people get held up. Actually putting in an offer for a property. You've done your due diligence. You've got your lender lined up. You've got your approval in place. You understand the financing. You've researched the areas. You've researched the properties. It's now time to kind of put that all together that grows your confidence in the investment you're making and actually make an offer to go through with it. Now that's going to be looking at certain properties, and again we do the assessment of what makes sense, what are the numbers for this, what am I going to have to do to get it ready for rental. And if everything makes sense, let's say you've got 85, 90, 95% of your wish list is in play, that's a great one to go for. Great one. Don't be looking always for the 100% home. I always say have an understanding of the 100% home, but they rarely exist. How close can you get to it? If you get 95, 90, really good one to go with. So we're not going to be worrying about, what countertops are in there. We are worried about condition. We're more considering the numbers. If the numbers make sense and you feel good about the data that's been reviewed, jump all over it and get going. Now, you're not just going to submit an offer at asking price. Right? You're going to talk to your agent about the negotiation. You're going to talk about strategy. The numbers might work great at asking price. I bet they work better with less than asking price. For sure. Why wouldn't they? How much off the asking price could you get? How long has the property been on the market? Make sure you're using that real estate professional to give you counsel on what a feasible, realistic offer could be for the property. And you're going to consider how long it's been on the market, what's been going on with comps, what location the property is in the development, what's happening around it. All these different things are going to play in. What are you doing with commission rates? Are you, as the investor, paying your agent the compensation from your buyer agency agreement? Are you relying on those payments being made by the seller? That will play into your offer. Something you want to make sure you talk about with your agent before you approach with that offer. Because the key thing with step 7, it's not just getting an offer accepted to complete the step. It's getting the right offer accepted. Number 8, important. Do not skip this. No matter for any investment property out there, get an inspection. Please get an inspection. The amount of horror stories I hear from people that don't do inspections. Please get an inspection, whether it's a single family, duplex, triplex, fourplex, whether you're doing it for a short-term hold, if it's a condo, a townhome. Please make sure you're checking the foundation, you're checking the sewer line, you're checking for wood destroying organisms, you're checking, maybe even doing an air quality test. Do a sound test, especially if you're in a townhome. Be in the unit yourself. Don't just send an inspector and get the report. Go and be there for the inspection. Be there for the 1, 2, 3 hours. This is the longest time you're going to be in a property before you own it. And every minute can count. Did that train only roll by while you were in it? Not when you were showing it, not when you saw it for 15, 20 minutes earlier, but during that 3-hour period. Did that train roll by? Did my neighbor start playing drums at 4 p.m. because the kid came home from school? Try to figure out all these things that could disturb a tenant, which would stop a headache for you later, right? So make sure you're doing these inspections. Make sure you're hiring a trusted professional, not just a newbie, right? Make sure you're getting the recommendations for which ones you want to do. Talk to them about what their pricing for the inspection is also. This is an investment purchase. Be mindful of the numbers. And more importantly, the inspection is going to help reduce you having to pay for unexpected expenses. A big one, for example, is a sewer scope, right? Many people don't do it. It's wild. But you could buy a home, everything looked great on the surface, but if you get a backup in that sewer line, you could be looking at obviously fixing or replacing the sewer line. Could be 5, 6, 7, seen it go up to $20,000 before. That backup could go into the property and it flood into the property. Now you're talking about flooring repairs and paint and maybe cabinetry. Like, just be very, very consistent on getting everything checked out before you buy it, so you reduce the expense later. What's going on with your appliances? How old is the furnace? How old is the water heater? Have they been serviced? What's the condition of the roof, especially the roof in North Texas? Do you have any warranties on anything? Check these things before you buy it. So again, we're reducing the outlay of capital into this investment property. Number 9, close on the property. So you've gone through the inspection, your financing's all done. Number 9, you've secured the property. Well done. What have you done to prepare for it? Are you ready with a photographer or a cleaner to get the media done for it to promote for a rental? Are you setting up updates to be done? Is it needing some paint? Are you doing some interior cosmetic work? Do you have your contractor lined up? Could you have got the contractor in earlier to review it, to get the estimates so they can get to work on day 1, 2, or 3? So you reduce the downtime of the property before you can start receiving income on it, right? All these things revolve around the closing. How soon are you getting keys? Make sure you've got garage door openers, mail keys, all these aspects. Your realtor really should be helping you with these things as well. So don't feel like you have to go it alone. Now, when you got your contract in place, an escrow company would have been identified as who's holding escrow. So you can check on what fees there are as you're going through the sale. But when you're going through the closing, you'll have a ton of paperwork to sign and you'll have that closing disclosure, which outlines what your expenses are at closing. Now, most title companies really have all the same funds, right? But you might find a different escrow charge or a notary fee or something like that. Check on what those are. Talk to your agent of what's normal. Talk to the escrow agent, understand everything behind it. You know, maybe in your deal, you were able to get funds from the seller to pay for closing costs. Perhaps that was the part of your deal to reduce capital of what money is going to go into it. Because most purchases, you've got your down payment and you've got your closing costs. Is the seller paying all the closing costs? It leaves you with just your down payment. Also with closing, when are you closing? Make sure you remind yourself that you pay mortgage in arrears. So if you close on a property in May, your first mortgage payment won't be until July 1. But that doesn't mean you won't be paying the taxes for it until July 1. The escrow company is going to prorate the taxes and factor that into what's being paid at the closing table. So talk to them about how much taxes am I going to have to pay at that point? Do I have to put any in reserve account? What goes into the escrow account? How much is that going to be? Do you want to push off your payment to July? Can you pay it sooner? What are your options on that? Are there late fees? You know, making sure you're understanding all of those considerations with what's going on with your money. So once it's all squared away, you've got keys. Make sure you've got a plan for that of what you're doing with the property. If you're moving in and you're house hacking and you're getting other people to move in with you, make sure you've got sets of keys lined up for them. If it's just a rental, how soon can you get it onto the rental market to get a tenant lined up? All of these things you're going to want to have in consideration. Speak to your lender after you've acquired it and you've obtained tenants for the property. Is there a new financing plan you can do? Can you refinance the property? Take the money out of the property that you put into it to go and get your next one. So if you're a new investor or you've done this before, but you feel like you're looking for a property and you maybe want a new real estate partner going through with you, hopefully you found this video to be helpful. Maybe you put some considerations in for a new real estate connection. I'd love to interview for that part. Make sure you're looking at the description below. There's a form online you can fill out to complete and I'll reach out to you directly. If you have comments about this video or have any questions, please make sure to drop them in the comments below. I'll do my best to get back to you ASAP personally. And most importantly, if you've enjoyed this video today or you found it to be helpful, do me a favor, hit subscribe, hit like. It'd be great to get this shared out. Maybe put it on your Facebook page as a share for fellow investors out there or want to be investors for them to get the information as well. But thank you for watching. I'm Leigh Calvert with Briggs Freeman Sotheby's International Realty. We'll see you again soon.